This is an honor. A young dwarf kneels in front of the altar. He has been called, chosen by the goddess of knowledge to bear her blessing. He will be her eyes upon the world. Rise. He does as he is commanded, rising to his full height. He's fairly short by dwarven standards, just shy of 4 feet tall. As confident as the young dwarf seems in his stature, his eyes betray fear. He is afraid that after today, he will no longer be himself. Before him, on the other side of the altar, stands the temple's head priest. She is taller than him, perhaps because she's not dwarven. Her eyes are alight with the influence of Yanthe, and she speaks in 2 voices at once. Daraz Kaldheim, you have been summoned here today because you have been chosen. You will become the emissary of Yanthe. This is an honor. The young dwarf bows his head. His voice sounds hollow, as if the words are not his own. You will be the goddess's eyes, her ears, her very presence upon Saris. You will be the keeper of knowledge and the guardian of light. The priest makes her way around the altar to stand between it and the dwarf. Do you, Daraz Kaldheim Dorian, accept your calling? He hesitates. Would it really matter if he said no? Would Yanthe simply choose someone else? Or would she force her will upon him regardless of consent? He decides that he would rather not find out. It is, after all, unwise to defy a god. I do. Do you swear to lead others to knowledge, that they too may revel in Yanthe's glory? Yes. He stares at the floor. Why is he agreeing to this? Is it because he wants to? Or because he feels like he needs to? Is he really that afraid of Yanthe? Of course he is. She could obliterate him in an instant, if she so chose. But what would she gain from that? Why shouldn't he defy her? Why won't he? He is a coward. Then kneel before me, Kaldheim, and receive her blessing. The priest raises her hands, and the dwarf obeys. 2 streams of light arc from the altar to the priest's hands as she raises her voice in song. The words are in a tongue long forgotten, but the dwarf understands them all. Sing to me, O learned muse, that thine eyes shall see again. Open thee thine ears to hear their Saris space within thy light. The priest rests her hands on the dwarf's shoulders, and the light flows into him. It scorches him from the inside out, purging him of shadow as he opens his mouth to scream. They are gone now. An elderly dwarf leans against his cane in the gallery he has come to call home. He has risked life and limb in the pursuit of knowledge, and he is surrounded by the fruits of his labor. Each of the priceless relics in his emporium have a story behind them, and he knows them all. You can drop the axe. He slumps downward, putting more weight against his cane. His mind is flooded with all of the knowledge in the world, and light flows from the cracks in his skin. He is dying, and he knows it. She is dead, and he's paying for it. Just moments ago, there had been a small group of adventurers in his home. He had told them that he had days, perhaps weeks. He knows that he only has hours. If he's lucky, perhaps he can prolong that. A noise behind him jerks him from his stupor. He doesn't need to turn to know who it is. Mr. Kaldheim, Professor Bronzebreaker and I have found something. The comparatively young gnome's voice calls from behind him. She was fiercely devoted to the goddess's cause, and the dwarf has no doubt that she would have been a successor, if not for her fall.
Please, Ezra, Bronzebreaker was my father. Firth will do.
A second voice speaks, belonging to a middle-aged dragonborn. The dwarf hasn't known him for long, but considers him a kindred spirit.
I'm not sure whether it will work, as the tome references magic that I have not encountered in this world. Regardless, it was in the non-fiction section of the archive, so I'm inclined to believe that it should.
Knowledge from beyond Saras. If only we had more time. Perhaps, if this works, we will. The dwarf winces in pain as he turns to face his colleagues. The light is burning him from the inside out, threatening to turn his limbs to ash with every step. Let me take a look, he says, too exhausted to hide the pain in his voice. The Dragonborn hands him a large, leather-bound tome. Its title has been scratched off and the cover is plastered with unfamiliar runes. He places his palm upon it and calls upon what little power he has left, and all of the knowledge in the book floods into him. His mind is filled with incantations and mystic inscriptions, the likes of which he has never encountered before. He sees circles within circles, bound with sigils of blood. He sees a way to bind a soul to an object. When the visions fade, the dwarf removes his hand from the book. He's shortened his remaining time considerably with this reading. Where once he had hours, he now only has minutes. The light has spread to his eyes, and his vision is fading. He recalls a rare curiosity he picked up some time ago. It had been nearly 60 years ago, when the Warforged uprising had been coming to a close. He had taken it upon himself to study the Warforged, to figure out where his people had gone wrong in their creation. That was when he found it, an intact Warforged unit. He approached it with caution, fearing that it may just be dormant. His fears were not unfounded. He had approached a similarly immobile unit just days before, only for it to whir to life and try to attack him. The encounter had cost him his left hand, and the lives of several members of his adventuring party. Thankfully, he did not need to lose anything more. The soul of the entity that had once inhabited the bronze husk had been somehow removed, and so the dwarf and what remained of his party brought it home. The dwarf had taken great care in the following years to preserve the body of the dead Warforged, and he kept it on display in his emporium. He never did find out how the soul had been removed, but at this point, that was secondary. Now, he knows how to put a new soul in. He motions for his colleagues to help him over to the display case at the back of the room. The Warforged stands within it, as if waiting for a command. As he is brought toward the case, he casts a quick spell, shattering the glass. The shell within won't need it anymore. His eyes are gone now, consumed by light, but the necessary spells are embedded in his mind. If this fails, I would like to leave my emporium to you, Firth. The dwarf begins to blindly trace out a ring around the bottom of the bronze husk before him. I trust that you'll take good care of it. The Dragonborn nods.
Good luck, sir.
It has been an honor, Kaldar. The dwarf closes his eyes, places his hands upon the ring, and hopes. A hulking metal figure stands hunched over a display in his lab. His mechanical eyes gaze at the screen intently, taking in every last detail of the data it displays. As he watches, a line of red text appears on the screen, displaying exactly what he had been waiting for. Cast failed. Excitedly, the figure searches the lab for a pad of paper and a pen to jot his findings down. Most other scientists in this age would use their multi-tools to take notes, but he's an analog man, right down to the gears spinning within his bronze shell. He's come far since that desperate night in the gallery. The knowledge of 2,000 years ago still rests within his mind, but Yanthe's influence is gone. Without her guiding voice, he was lost for a time. For centuries, his entire purpose had been her will, and he had done what she had commanded. After she left, it had taken him decades to find his place in the world, and when he did, it was not what he had expected. He thought that he would want nothing further to do with the pursuit of knowledge, but the thrill of discovery proved to be something that still fueled him. Perhaps it was a lingering effect of Yanthe's presence, but he doubts it. He finds one of his many notebooks and flips through it, looking for a mostly blank page. The notebook is almost comically small in his massive mechanical hands, but he handles it with the finesse of a highly trained surgeon. He flips past schematics for spaceships, weaponry, even an early design for the space station his lab is on. Eventually, he finds a suitable page near the back of the book and notes his findings.
Max range 5 light years. Discuss with Fireforge and Poincare.
He closes the notebook and places it down on a workbench. He's not sure how to work around this finding, but he knows he'll find a way. It's times like this that he's glad he doesn't know everything. After all, where's the fun in already knowing the solution? To him, simply having the opportunity to find it is the highest honor of all.